In July 2026, the streets of Delhi were littered with the remnants of ruined futures. Millions of students had spent years preparing for the NEET UG medical entrance exam, only to watch the system collapse under the weight of massive corruption. Families had mortgaged their farms, and students had studied 18 hours a day to secure a seat. All of that effort meant nothing when the exact exam papers were quietly sold off to the highest bidder the night before the test. While administrative errors are common, a breach of this scale suggests something deeper. With the government offering no immediate answers, the resulting vacuum shifted the initiative from the halls of power to the hands of the students. On June 6th, Abhijit Dibke returned to India from the United States and stepped directly into this chaos. He rapidly formed a new political entity, the Cockroach Jantar Party, uniting fractured student organizations under one banner. This map shows the geographic spread of their mobilization. The protesters demanded the resignation of the education minister and total transparency. By June 30th, they orchestrated a massive digital campaign, coordinating entirely through Discord servers and social media to flood the internet with demands. They chose the cockroach as their mascot for a very specific reason. A cockroach can survive a nuclear fallout. These students were declaring themselves indestructible, capable of outliving the radioactive corruption of the state. On June 28th, prominent environmentalist Sonam Wangchuk arrived at Jantar Mantar. He immediately launched an indefinite hunger strike. Because of his previous detentions under national security laws, his presence instantly drew the attention of federal intelligence agencies. This flowchart traces a unique supply chain. Protesters need to eat, but physical supply lines are easy for police to cut. So, supporters who couldn't travel to Delhi used apps like Swiggy and Zomato to send thousands of meals directly to the protest site, creating an invisible langar. When politicians noticed the massive influx of digital orders from the Middle East, they accused the students of receiving illicit foreign funding. The Ministry of External Affairs actually had to step in and clarify the data. These weren't foreign state actors. They were Indian citizens working in the Gulf, buying dinner for kids back home. By decentralizing their logistics through the cloud, the students bypassed traditional police blockades. The government literally could not starve out the protest. But the administration found other ways to retaliate. Mohammed Junaid, a local resident from Ghaziabad, spent 34 days at Jantar Mantar, handing out free food and water to the crowds. Police began collecting discarded food wrappers from the protest site to track down the suppliers. In the middle of the night, officers arrived at his family's home, detaining his father and minor brother and seizing their bank passbooks. According to civil rights advocates, when Junaid went to the hospital for a dog bite, police picked him up and threatened him with the National Security Act. He hadn't committed a crime. He had handed out meals. By the time the APCR intervened, Junaid's humanitarian work was being documented in police files as a matter of national security. In the eyes of the law, a plate of food at a purchase site had become a piece of evidence. The anger spilled over on July 20th. During the Parliament Chalo March, massive crowds of students physically tore down the 3-layer, 7-foot-tall police barricades sealing off Jantar Mantar. The authorities responded with severe force. They fired tear gas into the crowds and deployed the Rapid Action Force. Journalists and students were chased into metro stations and beaten with lathis. The violence quickly spread outward. On July 25th, organizations called for a statewide strike in Bihar. Protesters torched police vehicles across multiple districts. In the city of Siwan, a police constable leveled an AK-47 rifle directly at protesting students and opened fire into the crowd, hitting a bystander. The situation grew so unstable that the Supreme Court had to intervene. They issued sharp directives to immediately release detained minors and strongly condemned the police for using excessive force against a peaceful movement. When police confront students seeking exam certificates with military-grade assault rifles, the distance between the state and its citizens becomes a chasm. The firing of an AK-47 in Siwan didn't just injure a bystander, it signaled a government that had run out of civilian options. After 3 weeks of fasting, Sonam Wangchuk's body began to shut down. Having lost over 10 kilos, he was forcibly removed by police and admitted to Medanta Hospital under court orders. Fearing a total PR disaster, the government panicked. Within 24 hours, they offered 4 rounds of negotiations, ultimately signing 3 written promises. They would hold a parliamentary debate on paper leaks, secure justice for the victims, and guarantee no legal action against the students. The pressure ultimately broke the highest ranks of the administration. Education Minister Dharmender Pradhan formally submitted his resignation to the Prime Minister. A powerful minister was gone, written concessions were signed, and the protests were called off. It looked exactly like a definitive, historic victory for the students. Then, a report from The Guardian revealed the reality on the ground. Despite the written guarantees, police across 4 states were quietly rounding up students, filing non-bailable warrants, and quietly locking up the very people they had just promised to protect. Student leaders immediately pivoted from street protests to legal warfare. They set up emergency defense funds to bail out their peers and issued a public ultimatum threatening to bring the entire country to a standstill once again. The agreements signed in July didn't end the crisis. They merely signaled the end of the first phase. These mass arrests suggest the 2026 uprising was the beginning of a much longer, more volatile cycle of confrontation between a generation and the state.